Okay, so you've worked on trigger releasing your pelvic floor for that tightness. And now we want to work on stretching and releasing it a bit more to help set it. So think of it, it's like you go and get a massage, those trigger points are done, and then it's just helpful to kind of continue to do some stretching to help set those muscles in place. You're likely to get a longer release if you follow it up with some stretching than if you just do the trigger release by itself. So this is what you're gonna do. You can do this sitting on the couch if you'd like. You can even do this seated in the car. Just be careful, keep your seatbelt buckled. But if you're doing a long car trip and you are feeling some of that like pelvic floor pain, that uncomfortableness, you can certainly do this position in the car. Now, I had hip surgery 3 months ago. I can't go into super flex position and I can't for very long. So you're gonna want to maintain this position for a longer period of time. Stretches are better done slow and like easy and slow. So you don't want to force it and do it quickly. You want to ease into it and just take longer to really allow those muscles to relax. So I'm just going to demonstrate it quickly, and then I'm going to have to come out of it because of my hip. And I will be doing another exercise that will be better suited for someone like me who maybe has trouble getting into a deep squat. But this works for many women, and arguably it works well because gravity's working in our favor. So what you're gonna need to do is just make sure you're in a position where you have something behind you, so up against the wall, like I said, couch, car, whatever, and you're gonna come into that deep squat position. So you're gonna bring your back up against the wall, and you're gonna bring your feet as close under you as you can, okay? And you're putting a little weight into, your feet, but the wall is kind of there to support you as well. You're gonna take your hands and you're gonna find those sit bones, that bony part of your butt, and you're gonna go on the inside with those fingertips and you're going to pull out. And find again, kind of maybe the spot where you notice, was it more towards the front of the pelvic floor, maybe a little bit behind, but where you notice when you're doing those trigger releases where it was extra tender. And really try to just kind of grip and pull out. And just hold. And breathe into it. And again, if you can stay here, 10, maybe 15 minutes and just allow that pelvic floor to just stretch out and release here. And just, again, if you're doing it watching TV, you don't really think much about it, and it allows that pelvic floor to lengthen and release. I'm gonna come out of it myself. And like I said, slow and controlled, allowing time for that stretch to kind of set in versus trying to force anything, okay? So give that a try, and hopefully you'll notice that really helps that pelvic floor just kind of relax a little bit. So you're continuing to work on releasing that tight pelvic floor, and maybe that going into that full squat position against the wall just didn't feel great for you, just didn't work for you. This is another great option, and if you're a yogi, this is gonna look very familiar. It's essentially like Happy Baby. So go ahead and come down onto your back, and I always recommend come down to your side and then roll onto your back, okay? And you're just gonna draw those knees in and grab your ankles, and it's kind of whatever's comfortable for you. So, more like a traditional Happy Baby, you're kind of knees wider and whatever. But you can arguably get a little extra stretch if you have a narrower stance with those knees, but that might feel a little uncomfortable on your hips. It's a little tough for me, so I prefer a little external rotation and just kind of bring those feet together, knees wide, and essentially we're in that same full squat position. It's just gravity's hitting us a little bit differently, okay? So we're really focusing on kind of just relaxing that pelvic floor here, and we're just gonna focus on that breathing. So if your pelvic floor is functioning properly on the inhale, as the diaphragm contracts down to allow space for the lungs to expand, your pelvic floor should naturally relax on that inhale. So try to really inhale and breathe down into that pelvic floor. Exhale and just kind of relax. And again, I guess you are already relaxing in this situation. But really try to feel that you're getting your breath down towards that pelvic floor. For some people, you might be like, that doesn't make any sense. But again, if you're breathing properly, which has a huge part to play in pelvic floor health, and you're not doing that paradoxal breathing where you're up in your shoulders and the ribs flare and that sort of thing, but the ribs expand, that diaphragm contracts, Exhale, rib cage draws down. The pelvic floor should naturally kind of pull up just a little bit. But if you have a tight pelvic floor, we really just want to focus on getting that breath down into the pelvic floor so it can completely relax on that inhale. And if you feel like, okay, I think I'm kind of relaxing my pelvic floor a little bit, I'm getting my, my breath down there, you can kind of, on the exhale, start to focus a little more on abdominal connection. So create a little more resistance with that breath. So imagine it's like you're trying to blow up a balloon and kind of a forceful or, you know, an air coming out of a tire as the rib cage draws down. And then start to, once you've learned to fully relax the pelvic floor a little bit with that inhale, on the exhale, start to kind of contract and pull up a little bit. I don't want you to overdo it and like do these crazy intense Kegels, okay? Because you don't necessarily need that with a tight pelvic floor, but hopefully once you get that pelvic floor to relax, we can start working on contracting it when it's appropriate and not all the time, which is what's going on with that tight pelvic floor, okay? Another thing you can do in this position as well is find those sit bones, which is what we did up against the wall, and you can draw your knees in if it's easier, and you're gonna kind of reach on the inside of the sit bones in that soft tissue, that muscle, and you're just gonna pull it apart. So reach in and just kind of pull to try to release, and just try to hold it, you know, maybe for 30 seconds. Focus on that breathing. That inhale relaxes the pelvic floor down. And just actively kind of pull that pelvic floor out. And again, you'll maybe notice, you know, you have spots that are a little more tender, and spend a little more time there, okay? But give that a try, and again, you can try both, and you might find one works better for you than the other, you know, the wall version versus the laying down. They're both essentially, you know, the same thing. It's just with the wall version, we have gravity kind of helping us get that breath down into our pelvic floor a little bit more, but everybody's different. So try them both, see which one maybe resonates a little bit better with you, and hopefully you'll notice a difference with that pelvic floor.